Hey everybody, sorry about that long opening. My wife decided to text me right when I was starting this video, so apologize for that. But otherwise, I'm gonna keep it because it's fine. Hey, how's it going? Welcome to another video where I talk about stuff in Scott's Book Corner. Today I'm gonna actually talk to you about Lone Wolf 2100. It's basically the science fictionized version of Lone Wolf and Cub. You can tell by the cover that that's basically Lone Wolf and Cub. But it's a comic book. It's a graphic novel, right? That's the whole thing right there. That was made in the early 2000s. Because I read this when I was in high school. I think it was like a senior in high school. And it really ticked a bunch of boxes for me, so I was really into it. At that time, it was coming out by the standard comic book serials, so I had to like go back to the comic book shop every month and try to get the new issue. Now I could buy the whole set, right? And I'm pretty sure I bought this like omnibus like a long time ago, but then I totally forgot about it. And I just bought this one about 2 months or 3 months ago when one of the comic book chains out here in Portland was closing down one of its locations due to all the COVID stuff. So they were having like a going out of business sort of liquidation sale. And I bought this along with some other things. But I think I already have it. I think somewhere there's a box with another copy of this exact omnibus somewhere else. But anyway, so let's talk about it real fast. So Lone Wolf 2100, like I said, it's a scientific sci-fi remake of the traditional or the Lone Wolf and Cub series, the manga, but it is like shortened. It's really truncated. It's really short, but it's made by Dark Horse Comics here in Portland. So that's one of the reasons why it was kind of like cool to like get into it when it was coming out, because I was sort of supporting local comic books, I guess. I mean, like Black Horse, or keep saying it. Dark Horse is one of like the larger comic book companies out there. It competes with like it's like sort of a kind of a subsidiary of DC because it owns basically Batman and like all the Alien and Predator stuff comes from Dark Horse. So like, I mean, they're big. You know what I'm talking about? I'm probably not just preaching to the choir. You probably know who Dark Horse is, so I don't need to tell you. But anyway, they were producing this, and it's kind of a different take. But I'll explain to you why I'm talking about it today and why it is one of my sort of favorite stories. It follows the life of a small child named Daisy, who apparently has the antibodies to stop a virus that's basically killed off everyone in the world. Well, not everyone, right? Not everyone, but there's a virus that's killed off a large portion of the world population, which has allowed for a strange dynamic of people to occur. So that there's like a whole bunch of areas that are like basically super poor, and there's like warlords. All of the world economies have like sank significantly. So like everyone lives in like this sort of third world type status. Like everybody lives in third world status, which is kind of an interesting way to look at things. It was a very interesting way to like turn that like Lone Wolf and Cub, like medieval sort of feudal Japan story into a modern day by just pushing everyone back into feudal systems. Clever writers of the 2100 series. But anyway, so like this virus has sort of kicked off like a bunch of stuff, and a couple of like large, nameless or mega corporations. In this one, it does give a name eventually, but like for the first like half of the omnibus or like the first several issues of the comic, we have no idea what the name of this mega corporation is. But there's a mega corporation that's essentially sort of either they've tailored the virus to kill off all these people, or they're trying to work on a cure. It's really unclear. It's one of those moral gray areas for a mega corporation in a futuristic setting, very cyberpunk. But it's they're trying to look for Daisy. She apparently is one of the children of one of the scientists / directors of the giant mega corporation who has been genetically modified to have the antivirus in her, which is both good and bad. Like the scientist who tried to do it was literally trying to develop the antivirus to make it like everyone immune to this virus that's like killed off a lot of people. And so the scientist himself was a good guy. The mega corporation, however, was sort of trying to monopolize that or manipulate that to keep like the cure under their control, probably so that they can continue to kill off people if they wanted, and sort of control the population that way. But they made one major mistake. See, the company also develops fighting robots that are basically androids. They look like humans. They kind of act like humans. They don't really have emotions, but they for the most part have like habits and behaviors and sort of quirks and stuff, but they all are and that has a lot to do with their program, but they're all robots essentially. They just look human, but they're underneath all of that dermal like fakeness there's a skeletal body. It's very Terminator like. And They go through these like really brutal systems to determine whether or not they are like viable bodyguards and soldiers for this company. Like they have them like there's even a scene where there's just like a giant free for all where a whole bunch of like robot drones and mechs are essentially killing off these robots by like the hundreds, and the robots themselves are sort of banding together to form units to keep fighting back to like eventually win. And one of the robots who wins is our main character, our protagonist. Well, the wolf in the Lone Wolf series here. But his name is Ito, and he's named Ito by the scientist who's the father of Daisy, right? So they put Ito in charge of protecting Daisy, and it being like his number one objective. That's what he does. And so when there's a thing where there's kind of like this like questionable situation, like what happened, we don't really know. So the story starts off with Daisy and Ito on a boat with a whole bunch of like human traffickers being smuggled out of Japan and like headed toward China, and this nameless, faceless mega corporation raids the ship, and Ito ends up like barehandedly killing a bunch of people right in the beginning of the comic book. And that's how we open up the series. So we start to like get the backstory and flashbacks throughout the comic series, right? And like a major dialogue, like a between Ito and one of the others, like robot things, and like at the end, but I'm not going to spoil too much. But essentially, like the idea is that someone went to go after the scientist. They were going to get rid of him and to take Daisy, and Ito's programming was so solid that he protected her even from the people who created him. And so that's what happens. He has this free mind thing that sort of developed not just because of the way that the programming was, but because of the scientists that he was assigned to, who helped him like develop his thought process, and they like tried to give him autonomy, even though he was supposed to just be a machine that protected the child. So it's a really cool comic book series. It's visually awesome. I'll just show you like some pages from it. Like you've got pages like this. Like you can see that there's some really great art. Whoa. If it'll focus, and maybe it won't. But anyway, some really great, there you go. Some really great art inside of it. Some pretty decent dialogues. I mean, some of the dialogue's a bit cheesy. There's some like character changes that are kind of weird. Like almost as if the writer was writing and had no idea that the art didn't quite match the dialogue that they were writing. But it's also pretty brutal. There's some pretty bloody like scenes, right? Like here's Ito like slashing someone that was attacking him, just cutting them in half, and you can see that there's blood too. So there's some bioorganics going on with these robots. But anyway, so it's really well drawn, and the dialogue, like I said, sometimes it has issues, but for the most part, it's really great. But the story is like a complete story that's pretty smooth and pretty solid, and it sort of addresses the discussion of like, what if a robot is given the ability to think for itself? Would it still fulfill its primary objective, being protect Daisy at all costs? Even against its own people, right? And like the clear indicator is that even when released from that objective, when they try to wipe the memory of Ito and start him, reset him basically, he continues to try to protect Daisy because it's what he wants to do rather than what they're telling him to do. So it's a pretty nice little like thought experiment on also like robots. And like, if they were given sentience, what might they do if they could choose their own paths rather than fulfill their programming? So it was a great book to read when I was in high school. Obviously, it is one of those foundational stories that I was talking about before, where it sort of made me think about stuff. It goes right along with like Ghost in the Shell kind of territory, and it was coming out about the same time as the Ghost in the Shell standalone complex, Gitsack, as they call it. So it was kind of the same time frame. So you can kind of get that it was in the same vein that they were going for with that. And Gitsack, I believe, had a partnership with Dark Horse at the time too, with its release in America. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But I feel like that was the case. But I'm not sure. I'll have to look that up to prove if I'm saying falsehoods or not. But anyway, that's about it for this one. This one's going to be a little short because I was so long with the Shadowrun one that I wanted to sort of like backtrack a little bit and make it a much shorter video. But I do recommend Lone Wolf 2100 if you can go buy it. It's relatively cheap. I think it's like $25 for the entire series, right? The omnibus, the whole series, one book, $25. So it's not hard to get, and you can get it pretty much anywhere. You could probably find it on Amazon. I mean, for sure you could find it on Amazon. But anyway, that's all from me. I will talk to you guys later. You'll see more of me. It's Beta Red month, so there's going to be lots of Beta Red, and I will try to stick with the cyberpunk theme as much as I can. We'll see how it goes. I'm starting to run out of some material. Like, I have stuff to talk about, but I kind of covered, like, Scanner Darkly was one of the things I considered for today. But I kind of covered it in the Do Androids Dream Electric Sheep one. So, like, it's kind of not necessary to pull it out again. So, anyway, I'll see you guys later. Have a nice one, and right on.